Welcome to the Requisition Entry CAPS Financials training. Our learning objective for today is to understand the overall requisition entry process in CAPS Financials. For the agenda, the first thing we'll discuss is requisition preparation. So what are the items you need to do before you log into CAPS Financials to make sure you are fully prepared for entering that requisition? Step 2, requisition entry steps. What does it actually look like in CAPS Financials once you log in? And what do you need to do to complete a successful requisition entry? Step 3, we'll go through frequently asked questions, some reminders, and some resources available to you when you're doing your requisition. Some common terms I want to discuss today is business unit. The business unit that will be used for CAPS Financial is HHS-TX. So regardless of what agency you're coming from, if you're using the CAPS Financial system, the business unit will be that standard HHS-TX. Favorites. This is a commonly used CAPS Financials page that gives you the ability to be able to save your navigations. It's very similar to bookmarking web pages. Lifespan. This is the method for tracking your requisition. So once it's entered, when you need to monitor it, you do that through the lifespan. ePro Requisition. ePro stands for Electronic Procurement Requisition. Sometimes you may hear ePro Entry. That is basically your online requisition form that we're going to be teaching you today. Request Document Wizard. You will be asked a series of questions, which are called the wizard questions, about your procurement. The way that you answer those answers to those questions will be created and turned into a request document that gets added to your requisition. NIGP code and item. So there are NIGP class and item codes that are out there that are set for all the items that you're trying to purchase. We will discuss where you go to find those and who is ultimately in charge of making sure those are correct. This will be a required field in your requisition, so you will want to be aware of the NIGP code. Your chart fields and your speed chart. Your chart fields are a series of fields that you'll end up needing to fill out in your requisition in relation to your accounting, your funding, and your department information. Your speed chart is a quick way to fill out your chart fields. So every department, and some departments even have several speed charts assigned to them. It's a series of numbers and letters that helps them populate that chart field quickly. Your budget check is the process of verifying funds are available for you for that purchase which you're entering your requisition upon. User roles. So the 3 user roles we will discuss today are requester, entry person, and approver. The requester is somebody who is requesting the goods or services. The entry person is someone who is going to actually be logging into CAPS Financials and doing the data entry portion of it. The approver is usually a supervisor or somebody designated in your business unit who's responsible for going in and reviewing and approving those requisitions. The process for user roles will be dependent on your business process. Most departments have it set up in one of these 2 routes. The first route, there is a requester, someone who usually does not have requisition access in CAPS Financials. They do not have the requester role. They are somebody who just needs something. So they will usually fill out a form. Most businesses have a form that they fill out, and they turn it into the entry person. This entry person is the actual requester. They are the person who has the requester role in CAPS Financials. They will be the one who is logging in and doing the data entry into CAPS. And then the last step is it will go to the approver. The approver will be the one who logs in and says it's okay for y'all to make the purchase. Now, the one thing that I will mention about this, and it is very dependent on your business process, what your department does, Most of the time, the way that CAPS is set up to actually do this process is this entry person requests the requester, sorry, all the requesting, the entry person requests the requester role in CAPS Financials, and when they do that, they actually enter in the this requester's ID into that to say they want to enter on behalf of them. So that way, if they enter that requisition, the approver is actually their supervisor. Another business process that I have heard that some departments do is they do that offline. They check through via email that the supervisor has approved it, and then it actually still goes to this entry person's approver, their supervisor. So it depends on which process your department does. But I do want to notate that if you are entering on behalf of this requester and it's going to go to their approver, you actually have to request that access in Enterprise Portal to be able to enter on behalf of this person with their employee ID. The second route is if you are the requester and the entry person. So you actually have CAPS Financials and you need something, you're the person logging in, doing the data entry, and it is going to your supervisor for approval. Okay, so these are both the two processes that most departments are using when they're having these user roles on who is doing this, okay? Requisition preparation. So this section we're going to discuss what do I need to do before I log in the CAPS Financials? What information should I collect so that way I can enter this requisition quickly and efficiently? Texas Smart Buy. For non-IT goods and services, you will want to visit Texas Smart Buy first, okay? You'll see I have a screenshot here available for you to be able to see what Texas Smart Buy looks like. We'll actually go to this in a moment so that way you can see what it looks like. This is where you will search for the item you need. You'll click search and it will show up down here. You can actually click this button here. It is a hyperlink and it will show you more details about the product, the good or service you're trying to purchase. Please be aware there is a sign in button. You do not need to be signed in to search. Okay, this is for purchasers to use when they actually need to issue a PO, but just for you to be able to look and to find the information you need for your requisition, you will not need to sign in. At the bottom left here, you'll actually see the need assistance. I have actually given you Texas Smart Buy's information. They have a team of people that are able to help you. This is their email address and their phone number if you need help navigating this or searching for an item. So really quickly, let's go to their website so that way you can see what it looks like. Okay, so let me go back to the main page. This is what it looks like when you type in texassmartbuy.com. Right here is where you will search. So if I were searching for a pen, I would click search and it would show me all of the items. Now you'll notice it says 4,449 results found for pen. I probably do not want to search for 4,449 through those with that many results. So please try to be descriptive, right? Try to add in a little bit more details if you want to narrow your search down. Down here, I want to show you a few things. You'll notice there are a couple of pages, right? So if there are more than one pages, that means you have a lot of items for you to search. You can sort by low to high, high to low, commodity code, or level, right? If that helps you. You'll also, in the descriptions here, you'll notice this little P right here. A lot of people aren't aware of this, but this means item available from a preferred contractor. This means it comes from one of the set-aside programs, which you'll see there is TIBH or TCI. TIBH has actually been retermed and is now called WorkQuest. TCI is Texas Correctional Industries. Both of these two programs have been mandated by the state and are considered best value. Purchasers are required to use them first. Some people see that the price sometimes is higher and they're like, that's not best value for the state. In consideration of what the state has done to put those programs in place, they do say that these are considered best value. Please be aware of that when you're doing your purchases, because I know some people do want to go with a certain vendor and they're not able to because we are required by state to go through these programs first. Please be aware that's not a PCS standard or rule. That is something we're having to follow. Okay. So if you see this P, this is someone that we're probably going to have to go to first. If we aren't going to go to them, purchasers have to go through a whole nother process to get either an exemption or they have to do an exception report or a waiver. Okay. An exception report is for WorkQuest and a waiver is for TCI. So if they were, right, you saw this item on here and it's not something you want, they would have to go through a whole nother process to try to not go through this program. So please be aware that your descriptions and your specifications are worded accordingly, because that will affect who they end up having to go with, okay? So that P is very important. This picture, right? So another thing, if it has a little picture icon, camera icon, that means that it has a picture available. I will say that some of these items do not have pictures available on them. It is up to the vendor. It is option for the vendor to add a picture. So some vendors have not added an option, have not taken that option and have placed a picture on Texas Smart Buy. Ultimately, it's the vendor's choice. Okay, so if you get a picture, you are very lucky. If you are not, my suggestion is to highlight this information here, copy it, and search it into Google and bring up images to be able to see what you're trying to purchase there. Okay, I'll click on the hyperlink so you can see the picture. So you'll notice that the picture shows up here. You're not able to zoom. You're not able to see other perspectives. It will be a picture that is complacent on this page. But like I said, at least if you got this picture, you would know what you're purchasing. Like I said, my suggestion is copying and pasting that into Google if you're not sure there's no picture. Okay. A couple of things I also want to show you really quickly on this page is it has given you item details. You'll see UOM here. That means unit of measure. Later on, when you're doing your requisition, it will ask you for the unit of measure. If you're using Texas Smart Buy, it already has it for you right here. Okay, so this is sold by the dozen. Okay, so take note of that. You'll need it for your requisition later. Another thing most people aren't aware of, your NIGP code right here. 620 is your class number and 80 is your item number. You'll need that later for your requisition as well. If it doesn't have it notated here, another place you'll be able to find that NIGP is in the commodity code. It is right there. The first 5 numbers, 62080, is your NIGP code. So if on another one of these you're looking at the description and you don't see the NIGP code listed, the first 5 numbers of your commodity code is your NIGP code. That is a really useful, helpful tip and will save you time, and you won't have to search in the commodity book later. Okay. Another thing I do want to mention is when you're doing your requisition, I'm going to go back to the page, but it is very helpful if you give the hyperlink to your purchaser. So enter that in your requisition. Also, enter this information in your requisition. Give this to them too, because unfortunately, if you've given them this hyperlink and that is no longer active, once they get your requisition, they can't see what you were trying to send to them. So send them this as well, so that way they can search this. Because if this goes down, right, the hyperlink goes down, they can use this to search for the item you were trying to show them. Okay. Remember, as much information as you can give your purchaser, the better. That helps them do what they need to do to find the item you need. Okay. So all of this seems like a lot of work, but it is very helpful for you to be aware of and be able to search through. It will be extremely helpful in them processing your requisition. Okay, so that's your Texas Smart Buy information. The next one I'll talk about is the Department of Information Resources. This is for your IT goods and services. Okay, so if you have to purchase anything for IT, this is where you would go to search. This is their hyperlink, but this is their contracts and services here. You'll click that button. There'll be a search bar for you. You type in what you're looking for, and anything that has an IT component to it, you're going to want to search here. Headphones, mice, TVs, anything like that would come under this agency. Okay. They also have their commodity codes listed as well too. That's your NIGP codes. Document those if you're purchasing from them. So onto your NIGP codes. You've heard me talk about them several times. It stands for National Institute of Governmental Purchasing. It has a commodity book. The first hyperlink you'll see here is the actual comptroller site where they are housing this commodity book. This, if you want to learn more about the NIGP code book and how they decided this and what's under what statute and when they revised it, this is the place to go, this first hyperlink. The second one is if you want to actually pull up the commodity book to search for your NIGP codes. So if you weren't using Texas Smart Buy, or you weren't using DIR, or you didn't jot them down when you were looking at Texas Smart Buy DIR, say you have a new contract, right? It's a new item, you know it's not on Texas Smart Buy DIR, you're going to need to know the NIGP code. You would use the second hyperlink to search, right? Search for the items you're looking for. So I will go to that page real quick for you to be able to look at that. Okay, so on the commodity code book, you'll notice if you use the alpha index search, you can actually type in what you're looking for. Here I've typed in ergonomic chair. I can click search, and below here's my search results. Now if I scroll down, you'll notice that there are a lot of them. And so you might ask yourself, which one do I choose, right? The first thing I want to say is that try to get it now narrowed down to the correct one that you feel is the most necessary. It has a description for you. So if I were scrolling down here, I typed in ergonomic chair because say I received a doctor's note and somebody needs to have an ergonomic chair per that doctor's note, I would scroll down kind of looking through here. No, it's not a cafeteria furniture. No, it's not a chair for blood collecting. No, it's not a folding chair. No, it's not library furniture, right? I would keep scrolling down. Oh, posture chairs, ergonomic, 425.60. That seems like it would be the commodity code for me to use, right? So I would write down that information so that way I could use that in my requisition when I get to later. The main thing I want to tell you about these NIGP codes is try to get into the right area, okay? Maybe you can see that we're in the 400s, right? A lot of these are in the 400s. So around 400 is your class item code. Maybe I could get this narrowed down to 420 because that's the right class item code, or 425 is the right class item code, but I couldn't figure out the item number specifically. That's okay. Ultimately, it's responsibility of the purchaser to make sure you have the NIGP class and item code correctly. But please try to do your due diligence and try to get it to the right class code. It actually helps out your purchaser process this quicker. If I just went in and typed 005555 and was like, oh, they'll fix it later, well, guess what? That takes more time for your purchasers to come in here and start searching. And if you're not even in the right area where they need to be searching, it takes them longer to process that requisition. So please try to get down as close as you can to the correct NIGP code, okay? And then at the end of the day, don't get over involved and say, I just really can't decide. If I've narrowed it down to, okay, it's 425, but I don't know between these 5, which of them is the item code, it's okay. Put it down in your requisition and your purchaser will fix it when they get it, okay? But just like I said, try to do your due diligence and get them in the right realm of what you're trying to purchase because it will help them complete the requisition faster, okay? So in your NIGP codes, just so you're aware, last thing I'll mention about this is if you see an asterisk next to one of the codes, that means that it is an IT product, okay? The next thing I want to discuss is your request document wizard. So earlier I mentioned those wizard questions you're going to be asked. Right now, you may be like, I've never seen those questions. How do I know what they're going to be? There is an actual document out there that has all your wizard questions available to you, so that way you know what questions are going to be asked of you, so that way you can answer them already, so that way you're saving yourself time when you log into CAPS Financials. I will actually navigate. This is where you go to the connections site. I'll go to the main site and show you, but basically you'll click on procurement and contracting, you'll click on resources, and then you'll click on CAPS Financials request document wizard to see the Excel sheet with those questions. So to do that, right, so we were at the main contracting page right here. You would click on the procurement and contracting tab, you would click on resources, then you would click on the CAPS Financials, okay? So when you click there, it'll bring up this lovely Excel sheet for you. Now, it does not look exactly like it does in CAPS Financials, but it is a very helpful tool that gives you actually more information than you'll get in CAPS Financials, so I do suggest using it. Each tab down here is a different set of questions. There are 6 categories for you to choose from in your Wizard documents. Based on which category you choose will be different questions that you'll need to answer. So let's look at those. 06 category is a general purchase. 05 is contract changes. These 3 right here, please don't worry about them. They are purchaser tabs. So once you enter your requisition, they will get these tabs, these questions to answer. If you're curious and you just want to know what questions your purchaser might be asking you, you can always look at these tabs. But for overall purposes of this training, you will not see these actual questions in CAPS Financials. So we did 6 and 5. The next one would be 4, 04 non-DIR temp services. 03 hotel conference space. 02 professional memberships. 01 training registrations. All right, so you need to be choosing the correct category in CAPS Financials whenever you do your request doc, your Wizard questions, because those questions pertain to what you're purchasing. If I were going to a training class, I would choose 01. If I maybe had a supervisor who needed a professional membership renewed, I would be using 02. If we needed to rent hotel space for a conference, I would use 03. Right? So this is kind of the process that you'll choose these categories for. I'm going to focus on 06 as most people are using the general purchase tab. In here, I will let you know that there are 32 questions located on this tab. Okay. If you are doing contracts, you will go through 1 through 32. If you are doing a purchase order, so where most of your goods and services will fall under a PO, right? If you're finding something on Texas Smart by DIR, they usually will be a PO. You will only go to question 18. So you'll go through question 1 through 18, and then you will stop. CAPS Financials will actually stop you at a certain point, okay? So based on what you answer, on a lot of these drops downs, it will show you other questions, okay? They're all located on this Excel sheet. 1 through 18 is for POs, 1 through 32 is for contracts, okay? So if I were doing a TPO, I would select TPO, and then it'll ask me these questions to make sure it's a TPO. Will this span more than 1 year? I would say no, right? Is this gonna have any renewals? I would say no. I would say no. And then if it was a bilateral agreement, meaning do 2 people need to sign this contract? No, it's a purchase order. 2 people don't need to sign it. So then CAPS would say, okay, you're doing a purchase order. You're done. You have no more questions. You would complete the document. Now, if I were doing a contract, I would choose the contract. Then I would say, is it going to be longer than a year? Yeah, we might have a contract that's going to go 2 or 3 years. Does it have a renewal? Yeah, it might have a 2-year renewal. Is it a bilateral agreement, meaning just 2 people need to sign that contract? Yes. The vendor and us need to sign that contract, right? So then you would say yes, and so then CAPS Financial would trigger that you need to continue answering questions, and it would give you 19 through 32 to answer. Okay, so that's kind of the one thing I want to mention about those questions. Another thing I want to mention about this document is you'll notice that it says to select the procurement number associated with this purchase request, and then it has a blank document, right? So this is where you could actually type in your number if you had it. If you were on there and you didn't know if you needed a procurement number, in this document, it actually tells you if you need one or not. In CAPS Financial, it does not tell you. In CAPS Financial, it will just tell you the question. Select the procurement number, right? It's not going to give you this information down here to ask you about the requisition number or the procurement number, right? If you're asking, well, what is the procurement number? I don't know. This down here gives you it. So this document actually gives you more details than CAPS Financials will. So CAPS Financial will ask you for the detailed description of the purchase request. That's it. Then you would type in what you were wanting to say about that item. Here in this document, it actually says, enter a detailed description of the goods or services being requested. A description contains information describing who, what, where, when, and how. What it is, what does it look like, how does it function, how is the service performed, what are the expected outcomes, outputs, what are the standards that must be met. right? Be descriptive is all I can say, is be descriptive in here. This is what will help your purchaser make the purchase, right? If I just type in PIN, there are 4,449 pins out there, right? Your purchaser is not going to know what you need. Be descriptive, okay? Your justification, right? Why are you buying this? What does the business need? Down here, it actually says, provide the justification, include the information such as benefit that will be realized, impacted the purchase, not made, etc. Why do you need this? Type it in here, right? Max contract value. If you're doing a contract, this is your total value, right? All of everything, contract, amendments, extensions, renewals, everything, all money should be included here. If you're doing a purchase order, you might be confused and say, well, I'm not doing a contract, I'm doing a purchase order. Don't let the language of contract value confuse you. If I were doing that PIN and it was $12.32, I would write $12.32, because even though it says contract, just don't look at that, look at value. How much money am I fixing to spend? I would write it here, okay? So don't let that confuse you if you're doing a purchase order. From here, another thing I do want to mention is you can type. You can notice I have been typing in here. If you can type in the box here, you can type in caps financials. If it is a drop down, you'll notice here I'm clicking a drop down. It will be a drop down in caps financials, okay? That's what's really nice about this form. What I really like about this form is I could fill this form completely out. Here's why, right? Here's why I need the PIN. I need the PIN, right? And then explain it. And then I could write, it's going to cost $12.32. And then I'm saying, how did I determine that? Okay, well, I determined that through market research, right? That's how I determined it was $12.32. I looked at vendors' websites. I looked at Texas Smart Buy. This is how I realized how much this PIN was going to be, right? And I could keep continuing to fill out this form all the way through, answering all the questions. And then I could save this document. I could save it to my desktop. And then whenever I get to my requisition, as soon as I get to the wizard questions, I can open up the request document, and then I can literally just copy this over and paste it into Caps Financials. That would help me fill out my requisition a lot quicker, right? And you would know all your questions. It would give you more details on how you should answer, and then you would have all your answers already typed up for you to be able to copy and paste it over into Caps Financials. This is just a recommendation. You do not have to do this. You do not have to use this form, but it is highly helpful, especially if you're doing contracts. You'll notice when you get down here to the after question 18, they start to get a little more descriptive, right? And if you're not sure of these things, you're probably going to need to research this information, right? I need to know what will be awarded to HIPAA. I need to know who my contract manager is going to be. I need to know the risk to health and safety, right? No direct contact, incidental client contact. I need to know which one to choose, right? So these questions kind of get fairly more specific. And if you don't know exactly what you're trying to suggest, you might need to find out that answer before you log into Caps Financials. So please do use this document. It is a very helpful tool. It will help you answer your wizard questions. This data that's on here, your purchasers really do need it. So do try to be descriptive and answer these as correctly and succinctly as you can, because this is the information they're using to process your requisition. Okay, so back to our PowerPoint. So once again, that request document wizard is on the Connections website. You click on Procurement and Contracting tab, you click on Resources, and then you click on Caps Financial Request Document Wizard to pull up that Excel sheet, okay? So our next section, this is section 2 that we discussed in the agenda. This is the requisition entry steps. This is now, I've done my homework, I've prepared, I know my NRGP codes, I have filled out my request document with my wizard questions, I know everything I need to know, and now I'm going to log into Caps Financials and I'm going to start my requisition, okay? For my visual people, this is your workflow. We will discuss each one of these steps. So each one of these steps will be a slide in a moment that we'll discuss. But to start off here, You'll log into CAPS Financials. You'll navigate to the requisition screen. You'll review and update your requisition settings. This is optional, but we do suggest doing this because it will help you fill out your fields and make sure they're correctly later on. Enter your line item details. Add the item to your cart. If you have more items, you will repeat this process until you've entered all your line items. From there, you'll click the checkout button. You'll review your summary details. You'll review your shipping details. You'll review your accounting distribution line details. If you have more items, you'll click Add More buttons and repeat this process. If you don't, you will click the Save for Later button. You'll click the Add Request Document link, which will activate your wizard questions that we just discussed. You'll answer them. From there, you'll review in that request document. You'll mark it complete, and then you will click Save and Submit for approvals. Okay? This was a high-level overview just for you to be able to see. In the upcoming slides that we're going to discuss, I'm actually going to show you the screenshots for what it looks like at each one of these steps in CAPS Financials. So the first step, you're going to log in to CAPS Financials. You will need to remember, have that requester role. And to get that role, you would have had to ask for it in Enterprise Portal. So once you get here, you will use your user ID, which is normally your employee ID, and whatever password you set up, and you'll click Sign In. To navigate, you'll click the main menu. You will click eProcurement, and then you will click Requisition. Over here to the right, although you can't see it on the page, there is a button that says Add to Favorites. Once you've navigated here, if you click the Add to Favorites button, it will populate this in this Favorites tab right here for you, so that you don't have to use this each time to get to Requisition. It would be in your favorites. Requisition Settings. So you'll click on this Requisition Settings button. It will bring you to this screen. The first thing you'll want to do is enter your requisition name. This is whatever naming convention your agency uses. Please understand that there's a character limitation, so you'll want to be creative if you need to be to get that in there. Please try to be descriptive in what you're trying to do there. Later on, when you're trying to look at the lifespan and monitor your requisitions, you're going to be able to do that by name. So if you put furniture in 10 requisitions, it's going to be difficult for you to need to go back and check that one chair that you're looking for because you've titled them all furniture, right? So be a little bit descriptive in your requisition name. In addition, we will have a fiscal year 21 slide later on for you to be able to view. But for right now, just be aware that if you are doing something for the next fiscal year, you'll want to start it off with FY21 and then whatever your description should be. So you'll see an example down here, FY21 janitorial services, right? So just be aware of that as we move forward if you are doing something for next fiscal year. We're on the same screen here. We're still on requisition settings. We just talked about the name. You'll want to do requester ID. If you have the ability to request on somebody else's behalf, you would enter that employee's ID in this requester field. That way that this requisition would go to that supervisor for approval. That is only if you've requested that access through the Enterprise Portal, okay? The next one is your origin, your accounting date, your billing location, your ship to, and your due date. You'll want to enter all of these fields. They are required. Your origin code, just really quick, make sure you are not using the AAA origin code. The AAA is a code that people were using kind of as a generic code to put in there to bypass that required field. Please do not do that. Your origin code actually sets up your approval routing. So if you put in that generic code, it's not going to go to the correct approvers and it's going to sit in this limbo. So make sure you know your correct origin code and you are using the correct origin code in this field. The last thing I'll mention is delete your department ID from here. Later on when we're doing our speed chart, you want that to be out of the way so it doesn't mess up with your speed chart. After you've entered these fields, you'll click OK. From here, it'll take you back to your main requisition page. So we had just clicked requisition settings and entered that field, and now we're going to click requests. This will start our requisition. On this main screen of creating a requisition screen, you'll notice that these are already filled out. Your screen will be blank, okay? So you're going to actually enter this information. You're going to enter an item description. You're going to enter a price. You're going to enter your currency. You're going to enter the quantity, how many you need. Your unit of measure. So earlier I mentioned this when we were on the Texas Smart Buy site. I said, pay attention to your UOM, your unit of measure. So earlier our pin said dozen. I would have put DOZ here. So you can actually click this little search button and it will bring up all the different types of units of measures for you to be able to choose from. The one thing I will notate here for you is if you're doing a lot of goods have different types of unit of measures. For services, it is lot. Okay, LOT, lot. That's what you should be putting if you're doing anything for services. Your NIGP class and your item code. So your class is the first three numbers, and your item is the last two. Remember when we're looking at those commodity codes, this is where you need to put them. The supplier information is blank. You do not need to fill this out, or the manufacturer's information. That is not required. It is optional for you to be able to go with. From there, you'll click the Add to Cart at the bottom of the page. When you do that, you'll notice that it added a line to the top of your page. You'll see line 1. If you had further items to add to this requisition, you would enter them into these item details. So you would enter all your items for the second line, you'd click Add to Cart, and then it would show 2 lines. If you had more things, you would add your item details again, you'd click Add to Cart, and then it would show 3 lines. You would continue to do this process until you added all your line items, then you would click Checkout. When you click Checkout, it will bring you to the Review and Submit page. The first thing you want to check is your amount. You want to make sure that it totaled all your line item amounts correctly. This could be an issue with your approval routing and things like that if you don't have the amount correct. Funding and money drives a lot of the approvals and the reapprovals, so you don't want to have that already have to be a catch-all. So do double check your amounts and make sure it's calculated correctly. Do not change your accounting date. It will populate to whatever date you started the requisition. The only time you'll change this accounting date is if it's for the next fiscal year. Okay. Your special priority purchase types right here, it will show NA. You can leave it as NA. It does not do anything. If you decide to change the status, it's not a field that anybody uses. So please don't feel like if you put high here that it's going to push your requisition before anybody else's. It's just a field that has not been used, but it's still on there. Okay, so on this same page, we're on the same page. I'm just kind of showing you a little bit further down on the page. You'll click this triangle button that's to the left to expand the line item to see more things. You'll see that you'll check your quantity, if it's showing the correct amount, your price, if it's showing the correct amount, your ship to, which is your mail code, your attention to, who is it going to, and the due date in which you're asking for it. A lot of people put 2 weeks out. Additionally, on the next screen, I'm going to click this accounting button. There's another little arrow right down here. And now you're going to be seeing the next screen of that accounting line. I just have it blown up for you to be able to see it a little bit better. So this is the drop down I was just talking about. You click the accounting lines. The first thing you'll want to do is the distribute by and the liquidate by. Okay. Follow the chart below to be able to know what you're going through. Requesting goods or assets, quantity, quantity. Requesting goods is a blanket order, amount, amount. Requesting services with a quantity of 1, amount, amount. Requesting services with a quantity, quantity, amount. Okay, so you want to make sure you're using these correctly because this will tell us or tell everybody how they need to pull the money out of your accounts. Okay, if it's per the quantity, if it's per the amount, if it should be each time that a billing is happening, or should it be happening done in a lump sum where they take it all out at once, or is it a monthly thing that they're supposed to take it out every month, right? So that is what this liquidate and distribute by is telling them. So make sure you are following this chart so that way you're entering this correctly, okay? And then you'll see the notate here, liquidate and distribute by should show quantity if you're doing a $0 line, okay? So from there, we're still on the same page. I know it has zoomed in and then zoomed back out, but just so you're aware, you have not changed any screens. You're still on the same screen. We have now just kind of scrolled down. Okay, so confirm your location field has your mail code, right, in chart fields 1. So chart fields 1 tab will already be up for you, and you'll be able to see there. Check your location. Is that my mail code, right? Is that where I want it to go? You'll notice here I have a different ship to account. Ship to here. I have 6694 in this field. For example, if I had something that I wanted to be distributed to the Austin warehouse, sent first, so that way they can do all of the proper information they need to for paperwork wise, and then I wanted it to be shipped to me afterwards, I could put ship to 6694 for the warehouse to get it, to receive it, and do all the receiving paperwork. And then I would put down here in the location code my 2020 so that they could send it directly to me after they were done. The warehouse would know to deliver it to me. That is how you could do that, so that way you could actually get it sent to you. Okay? And this 6694 is for Austin area people only. So if you are looking at this webinar from a regional office, you may have your own warehouse, or it may need to go directly to you. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to do our speed chart. So here's where a lot of people do not click over the tabs. They're on chart fields 1, which we were just on a minute ago, and they do not click on the chart fields 2. Make sure you're clicking on the chart fields 2 before you enter your speed chart, okay? So click on chart fields 2. All of these will be blank until you enter your speed chart information. So this is my speed chart information. I would type it in. I'd actually want to make sure I'm using this magnifying glass. If I just type it in right here, it does not pull up and does not auto-populate. I have to actually click on the magnifying glass, enter it into the search field, use the hyperlink in the search field for it to populate everything correctly. Okay, this is kind of a CAPS financial tidbit that you need to be aware of, because if you're typing it in and you're like, why is it not populating? It's because you have to use the magnifying glass to get it to populate. When it populates, it will give you the funding, the department, the program, the class, the budget reference, and the project. So it will populate those fields. It does not populate your account number. Okay, so later on at the end of this PowerPoint, there is a resource for you with how to look up account codes for you to be able to know what you should be putting here. Okay. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to add any comments, any attachments that we need to on this requisition. We're still on the same review and submit checkout button. So we just basically entered the counting lines information down here. We entered our distribute by, we entered our liquidate by, we did our speed chart, and now we want to add our items. So we go back up to the line item 1. We click the add comments, add bubble button underneath the comments section. This will bring up a screen for you to be able to look at. You can add comments in right here about what you're wanting to tell the purchaser about this line item or what you're attaching. You'll click the add attachments button. Some examples of some types of attachments are quotes, scope of work or statement of work, registration forms if it's for a training, any kind of item specifications. If you're doing a membership, attaching the membership application. If you're doing a sole source proprietary, attaching that justification. Emergency form or subrecipient form 438, right? If you're doing a contract. So any of those types of documents that you need the buyer and the purchaser to know about, you want to attach them here, right? Make sure you are giving them as much as you can. Some contracts, if you have past POs and past things that would be helpful, past contracts that would be helpful for them to be able to view, give them information. That's the best way for our purchasers to get this completed correctly for you. So from there, you click that add attachments. It'll bring up a file attachment button for you to be able to click browse, search your documents for what you need to add, click on it. It will show up there in your browse field, click upload, and then you'll see it will be attached there. You can actually click view to make sure you attach the right document. Then you can click OK. This will take you back to that review and submit screen. Please be aware that we're on the same screen still. We just scrolled down to the bottom. So this is what the bottom of the screen looks like. A lot of people think we've went to a new screen. You're still on the same screen. You've just now, we scrolled down to see the Save for Later button at the bottom left, okay? So you'll click the Save for Later button. Please be aware that the Save and Submit button to the left, they see it and they're thinking, why is it grayed out? I can't click on it. I'm done. You're actually not done. There is still another step where you have to answer the wizard questions. So if you see that grayed out, it's because you're not done, okay? Really quickly, before we go on to the next step, which is your wizard questions, I want to give you just some quick information that purchaser or the deputy associate commissioners and the managers for the departments have said would be helpful in requisitions. This is a guideline, a request. It's not required, but if you give us this information, it may actually be helpful in your requisitions. So I'm going to show you that next. So this is the information that they said that beyond this requisition, it would be helpful if you gave them this information. If you're doing a contract requisition, if you could give them the contract manager's name, phone number, email address. If you have a vendor name, contract number, term of the contract, vendor ID, previous POs to reference, right? That helps them. If you're doing a goods and services requisition, give them the agency contact name, phone number, email address. If you have a vendor name or ID, reference any previous POs. Hey, we've always done this as a PO. This is what it came back for. This is how much it was, right? It helps them. If you have a customer name, phone number, and email address, customer, street address, city, state, and zip code. So this is something a lot of people are like, well, who's the customer? This would be maybe the requester, right? If somebody asked for something and you're just basically the data entry person who's turning in the requisition, but then suddenly that ergonomic chair shows up at your cube, but you don't need it at your cubicle, you need it back at Susan's cubicle, right? You could put Susan's name and phone number and email address in there. So that way it got to Susan and not to you, right? So that is some things that may be helpful for you to enter. If you have a business process already in place that you already do this information somehow, that's great. But if not, if you could put this information in your requisition, that would be great. There are one of two places you can put this information. I'm going to show you the first one real quick. So on this page where we click the Save for Later button, there is a requisition comments page field. You could copy and paste that information right here, okay? And you can put in all that data in there. Now this is what they call the header comments. So what will happen is if you're doing a purchase order, that information would show up at the top of the purchase order. So say I needed that ergonomic chair to go to Susan, I could put Susan's information in here so that way, hey, it goes to the warehouse knows it goes to Susan, or maybe the vendor needs to know it goes to Susan, not to you, right? So you could put that in there. That's one option. The other option where you could put this is in the request document. You can put it in the supplemental information, which is the last page of the request document. I'll show you that once we answer the wizard questions, okay? So back to our screen, right? We had just clicked Save for Later. Now we need to answer our wizard questions. So we're going to click this Add Request Document. It will bring up this little pop-up window for you. You'll notice it says HHSTX. Remember, that's our business unit. We don't change it. We leave it alone. You want to make sure that this does say Request Wizard Selector, because that is what we want. There's a number of other items you can choose, but we want this one to start our wizard questions. And then your requester ID should be yours, or if you're entering on behalf of somebody, it should be their employee ID. And then you would click Add a Document. This will activate your wizard questions. So now we're going to start looking at the questions that we would have seen from that Excel sheet we looked at earlier. You have to pick a category. Remember I showed you the tabs at the bottom of that Excel sheet? 01, training registration. 02, professional memberships. 03, hotels conference space. 04, non-DIR. 5, contract changes. 6, general purchase, right? So you'll choose one of those and then you'll click Finish. And when you click Finish, it'll start your questions. So you'll answer your questions based on your selection, right? All of these questions are the questions that were from that Excel sheet that I showed you earlier. So if you already had that filled out, you could open it up next to this and copy and paste everything you needed into this document. You would click Next each time you needed to advance to another page. You notice at the top right, it says page 1 of 4. So there will be 4 pages of questions for you to answer. Remember, what you answer could populate and give you more questions to answer, depending on what you're trying to purchase. At the end, this next button would turn to finish, and you would click finish to get back to the main screen. So here is our document management screen. So after you've answered all those wizard questions, you can click the view document button to see what they look like, or you can click the edit document button. If you click the edit document button, it'll actually let you add some information to the supplemental information. So if I clicked one of those 2 buttons, this is what my request document would look like. So all of those wizard questions that I just answered turned into this request document right here. I cannot edit these actual fields right here that are showing what I answered to those questions, but you'll notice on the last page it says supplemental information and comments. I can edit this part that's in the red box. This is the second option for you to enter that information. So remember when I mentioned wanting to make sure that chair gets delivered to Susan, I could put all of Susan's information in here. This is only seen by the purchaser. It's not seen by the vendor, though, or the warehouse or anybody else. So just be aware of that. If you're wanting to make sure that the vendor sees it, that would be on the header comment that I showed you earlier as the first option. This will be the second option of putting it. If you're not sure, you can always put it in both places. It does not hurt to put it in both places. From there, once you've added everything you need to, you would hit the close button, which is basically what this opens in is a Word document. So when you're done with it, you would hit close to send it back to the main page. So on that main screen we were just at a moment ago in the document management, we clicked view document or edit document, right? See the document or to add some additional comments. From there, you'll notice that your status is in draft. You can click that complete button. Once you click it, the button disappears for you to click on anymore. Now you need to actually get back to the main screen. What CAPS has done right now, as you've been doing this requisition, is every time you've clicked on something, it's opened a new tab. Okay? So when you get to this screen, you're gonna look at it and you're gonna think, how do I get back to the main screen to save and submit? Don't go back to any of those other tabs that have opened up. It may either open up a new window or a tab. Don't go to those to go back to your main screen. What you need to do is you need to click on this hyperlink right here that says Requisition ID. If you click that, it will take you back to your main screen. If you use one of those old tabs or those old windows that popped up, you're not in the same place as where you are now. So if you move back to those, you won't have completed the wizard document, right? The wizard questions for the request document. So you want to make sure that you are using this hyperlink to get back to the main screen, okay? So you'll notice I click complete. Now I'm going to click that hyperlink to get back to the review and submit page. So now I'm back at the main screen, and now you will see that the save and submit button is now highlighted and colored at the bottom of the page, bottom left. So you'll click save and submit and your request has been sent. You'll see your status shows pending, right? So now it has left. You have completed what you needed to do, your requisition. What you'll need to do is you'll actually see down here it's in approvals. So that means if you ever hear that people are saying it's in approvals, that means it's now left you, but it's in approvals and it's not come to PCS yet. So it has to go through whoever your business decisions department has decided needs to be able to check those in approval. Usually your supervisor is set, your budget QA is set, operational amounts, right? There are several levels of checks before it actually comes to PCS. Really quickly, before we go into monitoring that requisition and how you check your approvals and how do you get back to my requisition, right? Let's talk about the fiscal year 2021 really quickly. All of the boxes in red are the areas that you need to change if you're trying to do a requisition for fiscal year 2021. Okay, your name needs to actually have FY21 in the title. Your accounting date should say 9/1/2020. Your due date should say 9/1/2020. your budget, you'll click on Budget tab, and you will click 9/1/2020 in the budget date. On this same accounting lines, you will click Chart Fields 2, and under Budget Reference, you will put 2021. Okay, I do suggest you notating this screen and being aware of this information, because there are a lot of different fields that you need to change for if you're going to be using funds for fiscal year 2021. Please highlight and notate these things, okay? Okay, so now on to monitoring. You submitted your requisition. So what is the status of your requests, right? Has it been approved? Is a PO created? All those questions that you have, because a lot of people think that once they've submitted their requisition, it's already at PCS and it is already being processed. Unfortunately, that's not the case. It has to go through your department first before it ever comes to PCS. So let's talk about that now so you understand the steps and where you could possibly help in moving the requisition faster too. So types of statuses. If it's an open status, this means the requisition has been entered and saved, but it's still open, so you're still able to edit it. It has not been submitted for approvals yet, right? If it shows pending, that means it's awaiting approvals. If changes are needed, the requisition has to be denied, which will restart the approval routing process, okay? If it's approved, that means it's already gone through all levels of approval and everybody has said yes to it. No edits can be made. You have to usually request contact the buyer for assistance if it's in that stage. Monitoring approvals. So you'll notice in that screen when we click submit, it showed us a list of people here for us to be able to look at. To the right, you'll actually see kind of a flow chart. It's with you, your program agency. It's with your supervisor to approve. It's with program and budget QA to approve. It goes to whoever your department has set as the threshold operational to check it, the threshold financial, then chart field, right? Checking your funding and your accounting. After it's gone through all of those, then it is coming to PCS and a buyer is getting assigned. So it actually has to go through several processes. And this is the normal route for normal goods and services. This is not even including if IT is involved. So if it's an IT purchase, there may be additional checks in here too. Further people that need to double check this procurement. So please realize that just because you click submit, it is not with procurement and contracting services yet. It has to go through your department and your agency's, process routing and approvals of we all set here before it comes to PCS. Okay, so I really do highly recommend monitoring your requisitions, because it does help to know when it's sitting with somebody longer than normal, or if it's taking them a while to check things. You can always check to see what's going on with it. You'll notice it says pending here. When it says pending, that means that's the person it's sitting with. Once this person approves it, then it'll say approved, and then this one will say pending. Then once they've approved it, it'll say approved, and basically it moves from approved to pending, approved to pending, approved to pending, until all of these are showing approved, okay? So that's how you can track it. And it actually gives you person's information, so you know who you can possibly talk to if you need to move things through a little bit quicker, or say you're checking with somebody because it's sitting there for a while and it's been a couple weeks, and then you realize once you contact them that they've been out for a family emergency, right? So those types of situations that kind of are beyond your control, but you're waiting for it to get approved to come to PCS for us to start our process. So just be aware that monitoring is very important to trying to get these through. So once you've actually logged out, right, of CAPS Financials, in 2 weeks, whenever somebody comes back and says, hey, where's that requisition? And you're like, how do I get back to that screen to see where it's at? You would come to main menu, then e-procurement, then manage requisitions. I would suggest clearing out your date from your requester and your requisition ID, clear those out and then click search. So it will bring up all your items down below. You can click on the little triangle next to the requisition ID you want to check on, and it will bring up a lifespan for you. This is the lifespan. You'll notice that some of the boxes are grayed out. If it's grayed out, it means we're not at that point yet. If it is colored in, right, then that means that's where that requisition is. So if you notice this one, the requisition has been entered and now it's with approvals. So if I click this approvals icon here, it would take me back to this screen here for me to be able to check. Oh, it's still with Heidi, it's still pending, right? So then I would be able to know where the approvals are. You'll notice there are some select actions. There is approvals, cancel, check budget, copy, edit, view cycle, view print. Some people have used this copy function. Please be aware that if you do the copy function, this actually sends your requisition back to the same purchaser that issued that PO or that contract before. This could be bad if that purchaser is no longer at PCS, because then it's not actually being sent to the correct people in the right route of how they assign the requisitions. So if you do use this copy function, please make sure that you're going to your requisition settings and deleting the buyer's information. If you need further guidance on that or that situation happens to you, please contact customer support or level 1 so that way we can help walk you through that, or even PCS training so that way we can try to help you figure out, make sure that you are deleting the buyer from that requisition settings page if you're going to use this copy function. Okay, so that is your manage requisitions. Now we're going to go into our last stage, our third stage, your FAQs, your reminders, and your resources. So frequently asked questions. A lot of people say, I made a mistake on answering one of those wizard questions. How do I change my answer? You can actually use the request document page if you haven't changed your status. Remember, if you click that complete button, it's done, right? But if you need to still edit, you can go back in, hit the refresh document, and it would let you edit what you needed to out of those questions individually. What if I chose the wrong request document type, right? What if I chose 06 general purchase when I actually should have chose category 01 for a training, right? What in those situations happens? What you would do is you'd actually click the recreate document button on that screen where we were at when we're choosing our wizard questions. If you click the recreate document button, it'll actually basically blank out all of your questions and answers that you had for that wizard category and give you a new blank category to fill out, right? Because if I were doing my scenario, which I just said, if I answered all the questions for 06, but unfortunately I actually should have chose 01 for training, well, 01 training has all new questions, different questions for me to answer than I had answered in 06 category general purchase. So, of course, I would have to answer the new questions. So that's why it blanks out everything, because you have new questions to answer. Of course, both of these frequently asked questions are pertaining to if you're still in draft status and you haven't hit complete yet. The last thing I will discuss is some reminders. So at the end of the day, please, when you're doing your requisitions, make sure you are using your appropriate origin code. Do not use that AAA category. It's an invalid origin code and will mess up your approvals. Ensure that you're using the correct speed chart and department ID, because you do not want to cause any PO budget errors, right? That's setting up your chart fields, and you don't need them to say that they can't pull the funding that they need to. Third thing is verify, distribute by, and liquidate by fields. Remember, there's a chart on slide 25. Make sure you're choosing quantity, or amount, or quantity amount per your business process and per that chart, okay? That's how they're going to pool the money, okay? The last thing, attach supplemental information. Attach things to those line items so that way your purchasers have all the data and all the information they need. Send them pictures, send them quotes, send them previous POs, send them any kind of documents that are required for that contract. Do what you need to do to give them that information. It will be helpful in them processing, okay? And you notice my little bottom box right at the bottom right. Remember, the quality and the accuracy of the data entered will impact processing times. We really need the data that you're giving us to be able to process those purchases, okay? Process the requisition, make it a PO, make it a contract. The more thorough and the more complete you can answer those wizard questions, you can give supplemental information, is going to help that procurement go faster. Some reference resources. So this is the NIGP class and item code. We talked about that earlier. This is the account codes. So in your chart field 2, remember when you did your speed chart, the first field of account codes will not populate. You have to have your own account codes. This is the link for you to be able to search for those. The last thing we have is the PCS training email. It's pcs_training@hhs.state.tx.us. That's our email address if you need to contact us for further help. In addition, you have 2 more resources for you available: PCS Level 1 Support and PCS Customer Service. You'll notice that I have populated down here bullets for you to be able to use. These are the different reasons you would be contacting each one of these email addresses. Okay. They have different scenarios. They are there to help you with your requisitions. So you'll notice there are some scenarios that could be helpful, right? What do I do if I have questions about the wizard questions, right? You can contact the customer service. What do I do for guidance on the NIGB class and item codes? You can contact the customer service email address. Over here to the left, what do I do when a requisition gets denied? You can contact the level 1 support. We have a new department and we need to create a new origin code. Contact PCS level 1 support. So they're going to be a lot of your help and your resources as you move forward into doing your requisitions and those types of scenarios that might pop up on you after you've done a couple of requisitions and you start to learn these new nuances that may occur. Okay. So thank you so much for attending this training and listening to this webinar. Once again, if you have further questions or you need help, this is the PCS training email address that you can contact us by. Once again, thank you for taking the time to listen to this training, and I hope that you are able to learn valuable information on the requisition entry process.